Welcome to the Take a Listing Today podcast, where our hosts Jim Studebaker and Todd Robertson give you strategies to get you out of the office right now so you can take a new listing today. And now, here's Jim and Todd.
Welcome back.
Hey.
Here we are once again. Can you believe we are up to podcast number 20?
20. We are making some progress here.
We are. Welcome to podcast 20. And don't forget, before we get started, our website, takealistingtoday.com, where you can sign up for our next live recording. It's always fun, and it allows you to ask questions of the experts. Speaking of experts, today is a great day for you to join us, especially if you want to break into the luxury market and take a luxury listing today, because we have the expert on that, Mr. Michael LaFido, with us today. Hello, Michael.
Michael.
Hey, how are you? Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Todd.
Absolutely. Michael is with us by some kind of high-tech satellite connection, and we can see him on our screen. So thank you so much for joining us. Let me tell you a little bit about Michael. He is the founder of the Luxury Listing Specialist Certification, LUXE, that many are calling the new standard for marketing luxury homes. He is also the author of the books Marketing Luxury and Luxury Listing Specialist. He's also been inducted into the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors. And so, Michael, I'm very glad you've joined us here. We're only on number 20. With your background, I would think we'd have to be doing this for a few years before we got somebody of your caliber on our show.
Hey, no, I appreciate it. And that's actually one of the biggest misconceptions that real estate agents have, that I have to be licensed X amount of years or a certain brand before I can sell high-end homes. So, hey, you're having me on the 20th episode. That's perfect. I'm glad you didn't wait to number 200.
Well, we are as well. Michael, can you get us started out? How did you get your start in real estate and get into the luxury market?
Yeah, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of how I got into real estate. So I graduated college, Northern Michigan University, as a high school health and physical education teacher. And a couple of years into doing that, I had a deck cleaning and staining business. So we used to power wash it and stain people's decks and fences in the summertime. That's how I'd make some additional money. And I had a gentleman, unbeknownst to me, I was cleaning his deck, and he said, "Man, you ever thought about getting in real estate?" I own a real estate brokerage, and my best agent, my top agent, is a teacher here at the university. And so, long story short, 3 months later, I got my real estate license, and I always looked at it as if I could sell 1 or 2 homes a year, that would be the equivalency of coaching, 2 or 3 sports a year. And so I had that mentality, but, shortly after getting started, just being, outgoing and being aggressive and thinking outside the box, I started to do pretty good. And a short time later, I was the second leading producer for the entire Midwest with a firm called Realty Executives, which is a national franchise. And, then I started, my first speaking gig was to a women's council of realtors, and it was really based on helping agents think like a marketer, not like a real estate agent. And I had a product I sold. It was some DVDs and that sort of thing called the Ultimate Listing Blueprint. And a gentleman down in Florida who was in charge of working with the top 50 ERA agents in the country, he invested in my product, and he said, "Hey, man, there's a need for what you're doing in the luxury space. Many of our top luxury agents are competing by lowering their fee." And so that was 2012, 13-ish. And so that's right about this time I shifted and really focused on luxury as a consultant and coach.
Michael, I wanted to ask you a question here. What made you make that shift 100%? Because I know you still do some consulting, coaching, and speaking, but from going from a real estate agent to becoming now nationally known for this niche, which is pretty incredible, helping people make more money in the same amount of time as their normal prospecting. So what was it for you that flipped that switch for you?
Yeah, so I was coaching an agent that was a luxury agent, and I identified a lot of holes in their business where we could improve their business. And so and they were luxury only. And so doing some research on luxury and what additional resources were out there, I saw a need for other agents to have that same support that we gave her. So I made the shift, as I mentioned, And one of the things that makes me a little bit different as a coach consultant is I practice what I preach. I'm still in the trenches. So I physically had to move and hang my license at an agent's office that we were doing some coaching with. And that was a good 35, 40 minutes away, but it wasn't a luxury market, and I wasn't versed in luxury. And so I started implementing the same strategies that I taught for average priced homes, and I started to attract a lot of opportunities. And literally, people at the chamber were coming up to me and saying, "Man, where did you come from, man? We see you all over the place." And that's kind of what you want, top of mind awareness in this industry.
Well, that's very fascinating. So if an agent is looking to get into the luxury market, Michael, what are some myths that they might have, either good or bad, that they've got preconceived in their mind that ends up not being true?
Yeah, so I call them limiting beliefs or excuses or whatever, that you're telling yourself, whatever you're feeding yourself. So some common misconceptions that agents have as to why they don't even want to try to sell luxury is, I have to be a veteran agent or licensed X amount of years. I have to be with a certain brand or brokerage or national franchise, or, hey, I'm with a franchise that's not known for luxury, so I can't sell. These are all limiting beliefs. I got to drive a certain car or live in a certain community or sell a certain number of volume before I can dab, because, the what ifs are what drive agents nuts, right? The what ifs. And so that's what keeps agents from stepping out of their comfort zone. And that's really where the magic happens, is when you do step out of your comfort zone.
So a couple questions for you here. So let's say one of our listeners right now are agents, are listening right now, and maybe they're dealing with maybe the middle market, right? What they want to call the sweet spot, maybe the high turnover, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? Sweet spot of the market, but they have in the back of their mind, they've always wanted to. What has to shift in terms of their mindset to say, keep doing what I'm doing, but let me add 1 or 2 or 5 or 20 more closings of the luxury market. Now we're playing at a whole new, ball game, correct?
Yeah, so it's Todd, right?
Todd, correct, yep.
Yeah, so Todd, I should have probably started with this, but I believe, and I teach agents, that there's 4 primary price points in every market. So those are entry-level or starter homes. You got average-priced homes for any given market. You have high-end homes, and I define those, and we define as far as certification, as homes that are priced 2 times the average sale price for that given market. And we have luxury homes that are defined as 3 times the average sale price for that given market. That encompasses around 80% of all the transactions in most markets. Now, not mentioned as bank-owned foreclosures or rental market or ultra luxury, but those are the primary buckets, if you will, 4 primary buckets, whether you're vertical in condos or townhouses or single family. You got entry level, you got average price homes, you got high end, and you have luxury. And so I teach agents, to look back over the last 12 months and place the homes that you've sold, whether you represent a buyer or a seller, into those buckets. And chances are 80% of your sales will fall into those buckets. So it's a little shift in mindset, Todd, where we're not giving up the average priced homes and the starter homes, but we're just adding a little bit, a couple more homes here in the high end and maybe 1 or 2 in the luxury. And a lot of times agents don't go after the luxury because of the reasons I mentioned before, but also because we know that homes that are higher price point, especially luxury, in the market we're in now, they tend to sit a little bit longer. It might require more marketing dollars. And my list to sale ratio or days on market statistics will be skewed because of it. And so those are some reasons agents might not explore or break into and attempt to go after those opportunities. And I feel like the pros far outweigh the cons. Matter of fact, one of the things I always say, Jim, and I always say, Todd, is the fastest way for an agent to get instant credibility from their database and their sphere and people that know them, like them, and trust them. Matter of fact, people that don't like them is you land that first high-end or trophy listing. You'll get instant credibility from your database, your sphere. Somebody lands on your website, they're relocating the area, and they see that you have a high-end property or luxury property. It's subconsciously people think, man, if that high net worth individual did their due diligence and Todd, it was good enough for Todd to hire him, it's got to be better, good enough for me to hire them.
Right. And I love what you said there. Just break the ice, list and close your first one, because a lot of them have that preconception. It's scary in there. They're like, well, if I take that $5 or $20 million listing, where we are, right? Sarasota, KCK, a lot of agents get scared. They're like, well, that's commercial real estate. I might be sitting on that for 2 years, right? So I love what you said about mindset, and don't get overwhelmed. Just start with your first one. Put that trophy on the case. Keep doing what you're doing. Now you can get some momentum in this topic here.
The greatest athlete, one of the greatest athletes of my generation is Michael Jordan, and his home's been on the market for almost 8 years in the Chicagoland market.
Wow.
And there's an agent, a co-marketing agent out of Beverly Hills that was associated with that. And he still gets opportunities, and I saw him quoted recently in the Business Insider Journal, and he didn't even get the darn thing sold, and it's not even associated with it anymore. But that credibility now, if you get the darn thing sold, Jim and Todd, how many more opportunities you'll attract.
Oh, exactly. Yep.
So after an agent decides, okay, after listening to this podcast, I'm going to get into the luxury market, what would you say, Michael, would be the biggest surprise an agent is going to have once they start delving into this?
I would say that it's not as difficult as you might be telling yourself or you think it is. I mean, at the end of the day, that high net worth individual puts their pant leg on one leg at a time, just like you and I. You come home from work and that dog poops on their carpeting, just like you and I. I mean, they're human beings, right? So
they probably have somebody to clean up the dog poop, though, right? They're not.
Well, they do. They sanitize it.
That's not funny. That happened to me this morning at my condo.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things I tell people, if your listeners are on a shoestring budget or a $0 budget, some of the things that they can do, they could go to broker tours, right? Real estate open houses, agent open houses,
right?
In some of those high-end markets and the luxury markets to familiarize, to feel comfortable, and ask the broker ahead of time. But I was literally doing a broker open on a $2.2 million property that's new to the market in my market just prior to this as today. And I told the agents, hey, if you want to take pictures or do Facebook Lives, you certainly can, where most agents have a scarcity mindset and they wouldn't allow that. But I don't, but I would recommend that your listeners go to those broker opens, ask if they can shoot, Facebook Live, take pictures, and then maybe ask agents in their office that have some stale, high-end and luxury listings, hey, have you ever thought about doing an open house? You might be able to kill two birds with one stone. One, you get the seller off you about doing something different and unique. At least you're showing effort. And two, I can help you with that. I'll be glad to sit in on an open house. And now what happens is that agent that might have never sold $1 million plus property, now they might get some buyer clients.
So it's a matter of just momentum. It's a matter of just mindset and staying in it, stirring it up, play the numbers game, and build your confidence as you go, right? I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but it will build as you go.
That's a quote I always say: grow your knowledge and your confidence will grow. Grow your knowledge, i.e. feel familiar with the market, go through other broker opens. You got all these white papers that these large brands put out. Read the luxury market, grow your knowledge, and your confidence will grow. And when your confidence grows, Todd, you're more likely to do some prospecting and some lead generation, maybe in that zip code or that area that you're not that familiar with, nor have you ever sold a home. I'm fortunate enough right now to be marketing what Architectural Digest calls the most beautiful home for sale in Illinois.
Wow.
It's $9.5 million. It's featured on the TV show Empire. I share that with you because on the actual listing appointment, the seller point blank asked me, how many homes have you sold in Barrington Hills, Illinois? And I hadn't sold any. And he was listed at the time with his second agent. And I told him, I haven't sold any, Sam, but you've gone with the neighborhood experts the first time around and currently with them, and what has that gotten you? So if you're looking to do something different and hire someone that's creative and outside the box and hungry, I'm your guy. But if you're looking at hiring somebody that's going to do the same things as everybody else, and oh, by the way, Einstein defines that as insanity, I'm not that guy.
Right. I love what you're saying there. Let me ask a question here. So let's say I'm a realtor. Let's say I built my confidence up a little bit, and I'm going to go after it this week. I'm on the phone. Can you give us a little bit of dialogue? So let's say there's a high-end listing, whether it's a for sale by owner or it's a referral or however it services. And let's say that these people are blatantly going to, they're like, hey, we're going to interview 3 or 4 different agents. And one of our agents listing right now might be one of them. So what can that person say or do that can get them a seat at the kitchen table to at least have an at-bat?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first off, I would try to do as much due diligence on the house. If it was listed before, if it's a canceled and expired, there's some data out there. If it's by owner, grab the flyer, go to their website if they have a website, which most don't. Be armed with knowledge and information. And so do your due diligence. The second thing I would do is I would not want to come across threatening, but if Jim and Todd, you were the sellers, and I would say, hey, Jim and Todd, I'm not looking for agents' names, but you mentioned you're going to be interviewing 3 other brokerages. What firms are you talking to? I don't care about the agent's name. So now that's not threatening, because Jim might say, well, I don't feel comfortable mentioning the agent's name, but he might rattle off Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's, and Compass right off and at least I know what I'm up against because it's important for you as an agent to know the strength of your brokerage you're with. I call that your unique value proposition. So what makes your brand, let's say you're with Remax or Keller Williams. What makes Keller Williams different and unique? But you also need to know the strengths of the competition. So that's number one. Number two, the thing I would do, Todd, is I would show up differently. I tell agents all the time, show up differently than your competition. Your competition shows up solo. So if you're a male, show up with a female. If you're a younger agent, show up with a veteran female agent.
Smart.
If you're a female veteran agent, show up with a younger male agent. And even if that agent just got licensed last week, say, hey, listen, I want you to go on this appointment with me. Nod, take some notes, but don't say anything. Don't screw this up for me, Todd.
Right.
But in all seriousness, you show up a little bit different, and there's strength in numbers. You grow some confidence. And if you are a rookie agent, offer to maybe co-list with a veteran agent on your first 1 or 2. Say, hey, Todd, I got this opportunity. I'd be glad to bring you on at a referral fee or 50-50, but I want it in my name and you're the co-lister, or maybe even you're the co-lister. It doesn't matter, but be willing to do everything ethically, of course, to get that first high-end and trophy listing.
Speaking of which, though, I have a question for you going back to the Michael Jordan listing, because I did see that on Business Insider on my phone. Question, so that property has been on the market how long? Now, obviously, it's crazy unique, I get that, but it's been on the market how many years now?
Well, if you add up the cumulative days on market, it's over 7 years. It's been on for over 8, but 7 years on and off, 8 years on and off, but 7 years market time.
All right, so here's my question on that. Is it going to be like, is your mind going to be like, okay, if Susie Smith has a $380,000 listing that has been expiring, are you going to look at that Michael Jordan listing and say, okay, it's price, right? They say the only reason a listing expires is price. Now, when we get into this category, maybe it's price and a couple other variables because it's totally unique. And in terms of who's qualified for it, that's going to be a much smaller percentage of people in the country, right? Or the world.
Yeah. Well, I tell people there's really 2 reasons homes don't sell. Price is one of them. You hit the nail on the head there. But the other is positioning. And another word, positioning and exposure. Those are really, there's really 3.
Nice.
So exposure and price. But you could hire the Goodyear blimp to go around, the World Series and the NFL playoffs or whatever. And if the price it's overpriced, then it doesn't really matter, even if you have the best exposure in the world. So positioning is a term I use, Todd, and I could cover an hour on the term positioning. It's much more than staging, but it's what are you accentuating? What are you downplaying? Unfortunately, many agents show too much, and they don't show enough of certain aspects of the home. And so the buyers, the way you live in your home, the way Jim lives in his home, is to our personal style and decorating. But when you go to market a property, you have to position it so a larger pool of buyers can envision themselves moving in. And most agents are terrible at that. They don't want to offend. They don't want to step on your toes. They don't want to say, Jim, I love your water buffalo head and your stuffed lion in the lower level, but you might turn off some people.
Yeah, we're going to have to declutter your place, Jim, if we want to sell it at that price.
I like the water buffalo head myself, and I think the real issue is that Michael Jordan is not a serious seller.
Okay, see?
That's it in a nutshell.
Okay,
I'm glad I could
nice.
come up with that brilliant observation.
There you
here.
go.
Yeah, thank you. That's the end of part number 1 of our Take a Listing Today podcast with Michael LaFido. Remember to visit our website, takealistingtoday.com, for more information on how you can be part of our show, and stay tuned for part number 2 during next week's podcast.